Hello, my name is Habib Khan. Welcome to my channel. We go over personal growth and productivity, but today is a little bit different. I haven't posted a video in 3 weeks, and so today I want to talk a little bit about what is happening in this country. And so I'm in the United States, and so there are 3 pandemics going around, so it doesn't really matter where I am. Whether you're in Japan, where my parents are from, Bangladesh, or United States, there are 3 pandemics, and they are COVID-19, economic inequality between the wealthy and the working class, and then the third one is racial injustice, meaning the darker your skin, the less power you have in the systems that exist today. And so what's happening is George Floyd was murdered where a cop had his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And the crime was a $20 counterfeit bill. And so when we look at the 3 pandemics I mentioned, you notice that they're all connected. Because of coronavirus, people are not able to get as much work. Because of economic inequality, you have working class struggling to get by. And so, a counterfeit $20 bill at this time makes a lot of sense for people who just don't have money. And then racial injustice is a huge factor in this situation, specifically because 8 minutes and 46 seconds is not something that I've seen happen to someone of a lighter skin tone. One of the biggest problems with all 3 of these pandemics is we don't have data. Data is the oil of the 21st century, which is why I advocate for universal basic income, where it makes things more equitable. Workers see a much smaller return to the economy. When the economy is doing well, it doesn't mean that workers are doing well. And this goes to show when 40 million people lost their jobs, the stock market still went up. And this is because the ownership class, the wealthy class, the equity holder class, they are going to be fine. But you can't say the same for the working class. And so we don't have measurements on economic inequality. We don't have measurements on economic inequality. What we do have is no measurements and across the board. And so even when it comes to racial injustice, we don't have measurements coming from police departments. The data around how many Black people get killed by the police is published by magazines and news organizations, not the police. The police does not collect data on how many Black people they kill. In aggregate, we do not have, the best we have is Washington Post when it comes to collecting data on Black people dying at the hands of cops. So in all 3 instances of these pandemics, we do not have data. We do not have the collection of data for how these situations are affecting the population at large. And in its entirety, people are not caring about populations at large. When you have the wealthy class only caring about wealthy people, when you have the wealthy class not caring about working people, what you get is that the vast majority of people are left behind. The vast majority of people are dealing with a crisis. And so, this begs the question, what lessons and tangible things can we take from a crisis? So what lessons can you take from a crisis? The first one is that you see reality. You can see its truth, however brutal it is, and you can see reality. And what happens is light shines on truth whenever you have a crisis. The truth gets revealed in a crisis. And so you will find out all kinds of things that make you uncomfortable. It could be that society is failing you, Nature could be failing you. Governments could be failing you. Or your friends and family could be failing you. And so, all kinds of things could happen. There are so many types of crises that can apply. There are so many types of crises that can apply here. And so, whenever you have truths revealed during a crisis, the most important thing is to not look away. Crisis reveals truth, and you should not look away. So just stare at the truth that remains in a crisis. This will be critical in moving forward. You can't move on from a crisis if you don't understand why it happened, how it happened, and how you can deal with it when it happens again. It will happen again. It will continue to happen. Humans have thrived in this world in spite of crisis. We've had the plague, we've had the Spanish flu, and now we have coronavirus. And so there are a number of plagues in society, and we will thrive nonetheless. But the most critical thing is look at the truth. Look at the truth that gets revealed in a crisis. And so the second lesson is to really know yourself. Now, this can apply to any situation, but particularly in a crisis, you really need to know yourself in terms of understanding what your limitations are. When the world is panicking, what can you do? What's within your control? It does not make sense to worry about things that are not within your power, not within your control. I mean, even look at celebrities who have money. How much can they do to fight coronavirus? Look at the wealthy people. They can do quite a bit if they know what they're doing. But when you look at the working class, you don't know what a member of the working class can do. You can do small things. You can do big things as well, but you have to know what those are. Whether it's a small thing or a big thing, it doesn't matter how much money you have sometimes. You can still do big things if you know yourself. If you know what you can control, you can contribute in a more meaningful way that aligns with who you are and what you can actually accomplish. What's typical with people who don't have money, they might have greater access to community. They might have greater access to truth. They might have greater access to what is happening to more people around them. They have the lived experience of most people. When you're wealthy, you no longer have the lived experience of most people. You no longer understand. You're out of touch with regular everyday people. When you are a regular everyday person, your advantage is that you understand the plight of other regular everyday people. And so know yourself, know your advantages and disadvantages, what you can control, what systems are around you that have let you be resilient during a crisis, and what systems have caused you to suffer during a crisis. Speaking of suffering during a crisis, the third lesson is that the world will continue regardless, and you can take comfort in that. No matter your wealth, whether you're wealthy or poor or rich or middle class, even if you suffer, the world will move on. If Bezos dies, the world will move on. If any of the CEOs die, the world will move on. If you die, the world will move on. And so you can actually take comfort in that, because all the responsibility in the world does not revolve around any one person. So do what you can and don't worry about what you can't do. So this is now a time, I've spent some weeks just learning and understanding what's happening with the crisis around coronavirus, the crisis around economic injustice, the crisis around racial inequality. And so after listening, now I know how I can be part of the solution. For me, it's building my business, and it's learning and teaching about universal basic income. It's elevating the voices of people who are advocating for good solutions around things like ending qualified immunity for police officers, There are basic things to do around coronavirus, economic inequality, and racial injustice. Some of it includes data collection, but one of my favorite mechanisms is to advocate for universal basic income, where you have money in the hands of people. People can more easily argue for their benefits and interests. When you come out of a crisis, it's not really the time to suffer. It is the time to build. You can build new systems to build the future you want. Regardless of what you do, new systems will be built after a crisis like a pandemic. After a natural disaster, there will be people fixing things. There's always somebody helping, whether you do it or not. There will always be some good happening in the world. It's easy to look at all the bad, but when there's a crisis, people do step up, and you can be a part of it. You don't have to be a part of it, but you can be a part of it. Do you want to build the future that you want to see in the world? If you liked this video, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.